Now, let's go to the story, though. President Cyril Ramaphosa maintains that his visit to the United States during the week was a success. Prior to the visit, many had concerns about the kind of reception he would get, with allusions being made to the chaotic Oval Office confrontation earlier in the year between the US President Donald Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodomyr Zelensky. In fact, some went as far as even suggesting that President Ramaphosa should cancel the trip. Ramaphosa's arrival at the White House and the warm welcome by Trump himself belied the attempted ambush that awaited him in the Oval Office. No sooner had the meeting started did Trump show his true intentions. To help unbundle what happened is political analyst Professor Teffo and social media and branding expert Solly Moeng. Good afternoon to you. Let me start with you, Prof. Teffo, and thank you for your time this afternoon. So just your overall reflections. Let me tell you what I thought, just to get us started off. I thought it started off well enough. It seemed that Trump was willing to listen for a change. For a while, President Ramaphosa was able to put across. But that moment when we heard, turn the lights down, that's when everything started going south. Your own impressions of how it went?
You know, for me, I would have loved at least to give it an overview rather than to focus so much on the theatrics. Because if you ask me, the trip was a success even before it could start. Mm-hmm. But I had wanted to say this, if you may indulge me.
Sure.
That the Constitution of South Africa is undergirded by the values of reconciliation, social cohesion, and nation building. And after that meeting, I had more reason to believe that we need to review the Constitution and some legislation and policies. Thirdly, I have a strong belief after that meeting that unless blacks and whites work together, they will perish together as fools.
Sure.
We owe it to ourselves and we owe it to posterity. But about the meeting, I think for me, it was a success prior to commencement. Decisions are taken at Bryston's, at the safaris. Decisions are taken at golf courses. And the man called Donald Trump, call him evil if you will, the demon if you will, and I'm not one of those. He only said, I am not going to be the president of the world. I'm going to be the president of America, and America will come first. And if there are crumbs left on the table, then I can share with the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm interested in you saying that it was a success even before it began. The objective that was stated was that it was meant to be a reset of the US-South Africa relationship. Did it succeed in that way, or did it succeed in other ways?
It succeeded prior to commencement.
Yes. How so?
I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
The mere fact that Rupert was there in advance. The fear fact that the man said, kindly bring me Huasan from Polokwane, any else? And indeed, the old man. And remember, he even said, I see the guys here present. Where is the old man, Gary Player? That should tell you and give you a signal that this was going to be a different meeting.
Yeah.
And the red carpet was rolled out. Lunch and other things were shared. And I'm confident that they've come up with something, or something will come out of this. Perhaps we'll talk later.
So I want to play this moment where Donald Trump asks for the lights to be dimmed, which is the moment I alluded to a few seconds ago when I was saying, for me, that's when it started going south, the direction of the meeting. Let's take a listen to Donald Trump speaking at that meeting.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa, occupy land. That's who we are.
Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death, 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 horrible death, death, I don't know. To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws.
So, Prof. Teffo, I'll come back to you in a moment, but I want to bring in our other guest, Solly Moeng. We want to talk a bit about the aesthetics of it all. Solly, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. So I just played that clip that came through from that meeting where the US president asks for the lights to be dimmed, and then he plays, the various mashup of videos that some of them he claimed were from South Africa, and in fact, it turned out they were not. Overall, Professor Teffo says for him, the meeting was a success even before it began. Do you share the same sentiment, and to what extent did the aesthetics of it all and this sense of almost placing Donald Trump on indictment or on the stand, at least of the global media, to what extent do you believe that South Africa was successful there?
Very much, everybody. Look, I don't think that it was a success before it started. I don't think so. I think that even South Africans were not sure what Trump was going to throw on them. I totally agree with you that it began to go down when he went into the moment of let's just dim the line so we can watch the videos. But I think that for a little minute, even Ramaphosa lost his composure, but I think he quickly regained it. Look, Ramaphosa really played the diplomatic card quite well there. My view, when you measure these things, we get lost in the detail of how it went towards there, but that's not where we should be lost. We should be. What was the situation before? What was the situation after? Before last week, before the event, Trump was very clear that he's not coming to the G20, and he even stopped his team from working on preparations for G20. He also was very strong on this genocide thing that was. We know it was not true, right? And the trade and trade relations avenue was closed. The international relations were closed, and then after that meeting. This meeting, he said, okay, I'll think about it. Now, I think now that he will come. That's a win for South Africa. After that meeting, the trade relations avenue is open, the international relations avenue is open. We don't have to agree on everything. When you go into such things, you cannot expect to have 100% of what you're looking for. But the fact is now, I think that South Africa is now safe to open to send the next ambassador to the US now. I think that the relations have been reset. But everything that we saw on TV was just the public relations part of it. The real work has to start now. We know that South Africa came back within 2 days or 3 days. They announced that the easing of letting companies like Elon Musk's company to come into the South African market. So we don't know what was said in the private meetings, but we know that in that public meeting, I do believe that South Africa managed to reset the relationship. I'm not saying that it's done, but it was a good start.
Yeah. So, Solly, let me stick with you for a moment. Part of the debate is when you measure the success or otherwise of this meeting, was it successful in resetting, quote unquote, as had been framed, or was it successful in the other aspects that had to do with, for instance, did we need to be bogged down on this question of whether or not a white genocide is happening in South Africa? Why was that aspect important? It felt to me that there was a sense in which there was at least in the eyes of the world and among Americans, an attempt from the South African delegation and others to try and debunk this once and for all. So is that the level at which the meeting was successful for you?
I think it was true, and that's another thing I should have mentioned earlier. I don't see Donald Trump going around claiming this genocide in South Africa after that meeting. To do that, it was debunked during that meeting, and I'm also happy that they also brought in they kill the bull, kill the farmer, the whole stuff with nonsense by Julius Malema in there. I think that it's important as South Africans not to be emotionally bludgeoned into a false sense of patriotism. I'm saying that, leave us alone. The fact is, many South Africans have left this country over the years because they experienced violence, because their children were turned away, because they didn't have the right color of skin. Those things are not sorted out. So we mustn't come back from Washington and think, okay, it's fine, let's continue where we are. Whom are we defending? We're defending the status quo. And the status quo in South Africa is not good. South Africa is in pain. South Africans are in pain. They're frustrated by the ANC stubbornness to think it can just keep going. Sure. We must have those conversations. We need that national dialogue in South Africa to say, now, we got a kick in the butt from Donald Trump. You are not listening. Now, let's move on and talk about how we create a country for all in South Africa. That discussion, and political party-dominated discussion. The people of South Africa need to get together, just like they did in 1955, ahead of the Freedom Charter, to say, what kind of country do we want to build?
All right, let me show two things. Let me firstly show you a graphic including some of those claims. So when you see there in that video where the US president shows the examples where he says those are examples of death in South Africa and incidents in South Africa. What is holding up there, Reuters has since come forward and shared that actually that picture that was on that piece of paper that he was holding was actually taken by Reuters themselves. And there you have it in front of your screen there. They took that picture. And the other one that was also debunked, those crosses that he was showing on both sides of the road, that was actually from a funeral, a memorial that was held in Newcastle. Yes, there had been a farm killing of this couple, the Rafferty family, but it wasn't graves as he was claiming. Let me turn to Professor Teffo again then. Prof, at the end of that meeting then, did you get a sense that there's a sense of galvanizing South Africans in being plugged in on the problems of the country, what Solly Moeng was alluding to a moment ago? There was extensive acknowledgement of the problems we face, the violent crime that we face in the country. But to what end?
Yeah, look, for me, let me just go back to that point, that the meeting was a success prior to commencement. Go and try to understand where I come from and what I'm saying. Had it not been for Rupert, right, I wonder if the meeting would have materialized. Neither do I think in the presence of Rupert he would have behaved in the manner expected. Let me park there. In case the old man was there, he would have acted that way. The politics of Trump revolves around personalities upon whom he puts a major premium.
Sure.
Hate him or like him, at the end of the day, he's also smart enough. I don't think he's an idiot to that extent, especially how the Black South Africans projecting.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a hyperbole, where he deliberately and intentionally uses the word genocide as a hyperbole, not meaning that he believes in that.
You think so?
But we are more.
He appears to really believe it.
That. Pardon?
You think it's hyperbole? He seems to really believe there's a genocide.
He's not an idiot. Definitely not. He's much smarter than we want to project him. And he's not the devil we want to project him. Yeah. That man, listen to him when he speaks, brother. He says, I give you money for malaria, you steal it. Money for COVID, you steal it. I give you money for tuberculosis, you steal it. And you want to tell me I must respect you as African leaders.
Yeah.
How do you do that to your own people? And then you want to, and Barack Obama says the same thing, but because he's black, we don't want to denounce him. I'm just looking at it objectively, that the man is trying to say to us, I'm not Father Christmas. Wake up, Africa, wake up.
Sure.
And be on your own.
Okay, that seems to be a common thread, and I think between the two of you. Let me play now what President Ramaphosa had to say about, conversations, as you said, Solly Moeng, that conversations went beyond the glare of the media in the Oval Office to the cabinet room, behind closed doors, where they had lunch and further discussions, but also the opportunity to interact with various players within the U.S. political and economic system. Here's President Ramaphosa reflecting on the success of that particular aspect.
So all in all, I do believe that our visit here has been a great success. We've been able to achieve what we set out to achieve re-engagement with the U.S., to put the issues of investment and trade on the table, and to ensure that we continue engaging through the various other formations. It's good that his Secretary of Commerce was sitting right next to him, and they continued exchanging how our continued engagement will happen.
So, Solly Moeng, there's no downplaying the importance of the U.S.-South Africa trade relationship. Over 600 U.S. companies do business in South Africa. You had the arrangement around AGOA and the likes that we were concerned about. How much of a success was that aspect in trying to bring those issues to the fore? And also linked to that, What kind of, not sacrifices, give and take do you believe we had to make? I see the conversation amplifying now about the involvement of Starlink and US drones in South Africa.
Yeah. Look, we don't know. It's a pity that our government has not come to say to us, okay, guys, South Africans, this is what we gave in return. We don't know that. I think we need to put a spotlight onto what concessions we made to the U.S. I do believe that in terms of trade relations, we will be okay. Obviously, there's going to be a reset relationship on the basis of whatever was agreed behind the scenes, not in the PR meeting. The government must come and tell us what they agreed on. But I also think that it shouldn't stop there. I agree with people, for instance, in South Africa who are saying, yeah, wait a minute, let's still talk about the kill the bull. So we must challenge that thing in South Africa. We must have the other conversations that made Trump believe those things that are not true. It's a pity that on the Trump side they showed all sorts of content that was wrong. Basically that debunked the whole argument about genocide. So we won that one. I don't think that we should be going back to the genocide or not genocide, but we should come back to South Africa to say, are we okay now? Do South Africans feel happy to stay here? And government must be transparent with us about what they've given in concessions.
Yeah. Final word to you, Professor Teffo, on that aspect, the importance of the trade relationship and whether we were able to put it front and center to say whatever ideological and political disagreements, we've got business to do.
We have business to do, and we are not going to do any business and succeed unless we don't talk about things that matter. I'm less concerned and impressed by the theatrics, verbiage, and rhetoric. The bottom line is, if you don't deal with the question of migration, one day you will still want Trump. You don't deal with the tender system, one day you will still go to Trump. If you don't deal with cadre deployment, one day you will still need Trump. If you don't revise the BEE legislation or so-called transformative legislation that only created a few rich black souls in the past 30 years. Whatever legislation you come up with, let it benefit the wretched of the earth, the rural ones out there that we tend to forget about, but we purport to be acting on their behalf.
All right, strong words there. Thank you for sharing those. That's Professor Lesiba Teffo, a political analyst as well as branding and communications specialist, Solly Moeng.